Oh, I was born at the wrong place at the wrong time. But I bought the ticket and I'm gonna take that ride. Well, I nearly lost my mind. Yes, I nearly went blind. Well, I nearly lost my mind. Yeah, you showed me the exit sign. Oh, oh, yeah, come on. You showed me the exit sign. Thank you.
We love Tom. You can see why he fit right in. It's like, oh, so glad. Thank you, guys. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's so, as I've said so many times, I just am so in love with this community and with the people that are here and what we're creating together, and I'm retiring. And so, as I've said, I'll be here through the end of July, and I said it's kind of been fun, though. It's almost like getting to go to your own funeral, because, when I put it up on Facebook, all these people said all these nice things about me and ways that I'd impact people's lives from all over the last 30 years, really. And then people sent really nice notes, and, it's like, wow, this is even better than, it's nice to know that your life makes a difference. But the thing that I want you to know, and I just want to remind you, is I'm not dying. I'm just changing jobs. So, some people are like, oh, it's like, no, I'm just, and I will still remain a part of the community. I'm going to live in Salt Lake, and unless somebody wants to whisk me away to Hawaii or something, I'm open to offers, I'm just saying. But at the moment, it looks like I'll live here and continue my life and continue to do what I love to do. But I had a moment of realization that there's some other things that I need to do before I complete this lifetime. And it turns out none of us know how long we have. And so there's been a number of things that have been going on that have kind of moved me into the awareness that it's time. It's time. And I'll share one of them with you. I'm seeing my friend Dave here, who's sliding in, and his bishop doesn't know he's here. No, I'm kidding. His wife dragged him here, who I adore, by the way, just so you know, I adore your wife. I'm just going to say it right out loud. But I was in a seminar with him and then joined a group, and so we had sort of a mastermind group together, and we were talking about our lives. And as I was sitting at this table, the guy on my right, really nice kid, good Mormon kid. Guy on my left, really nice Mormon man. Guy across me, good Mormon guy. Lady across me, good Mormon lady. And they all were really active and engaged in their community, which I celebrate. I love that, I love that people are happy in their journey. And then, but I was kind of like, oh my God, I'm the metaphysician, But then as we started talking about, like, what are you reading? I had this realization that we're all talking Wayne Dyer and, Tony Robbins, all the same body of literature we were reading, even though we went to different centers. And so I had this realization at that moment. It was like, none of these people are ever going to come to my center, nor should they. They're happy in their community. Except Dave. We got Dave. He wasn't at the table, but but every one of them would buy my book. So, what book, you say? The book I'm writing. Leave me alone. Stop bugging me. No, right? So that was just a realization. And so part of my unfolding journey is to listen to that divine calling, because what I realize also is if I'm going to preach it, I need to live it. And sometimes the comfort of staying where you are is easier than moving, but I've also learned that only works for so long. Life will get very uncomfortable for you until you do take the next step. So this is what I just want everyone to know. I'm doing this with love. some people have said, well, maybe if you're going to go, why don't you just go? And I said, because I love you. Exactly. Thank you. I'm going to put you in contact with those people. No, but again, here's, and it wasn't a mean-spirited thing. It was just kind of like, we should be done with this because this is uncomfortable, right? And here's what I know. I was talking with a friend of mine who is actually one of our interim ministers and doing this, and she said, our world, our society is so uncomfortable with the void and endings. We always like new beginnings, right? We're all about beginnings. We launch everything, and we have grand openings, and we have, you never see a grand closing, right? Have you noticed that, right? And it's like, and if you've ever, as I have, been in a relationship with somebody who just moved out of one relationship into the next, you realize that now you're dating two people, not just the one you thought, right? You're dating the one and their unhealed relationship with the other, right? So my goal in taking some time with this is both for my own transition, but for the community to embrace an idea that I'm not just bailing on you and going, see you, hope you work it out, but to say, let's do this consciously together. Let us remain in the discomfort of the void, right? You've heard me talk a lot about the void. It's uncomfortable to be in the void. And let's have a very powerful completion so that then we'll have an interim who will come in, who will guide a process for us to kind of redefine who we are and heal what's unhealed and look at what we want to do. And then we'll go through a candidating process where you'll find a new and more fabulous minister than me. If you can imagine such a thing. And so it's good. So I'm going to address this from time to time because I think it's important for us as a community to realize this causes discomfort. Because endings do. The void does. But you see, I also know where my greatest growth in my life has always happened because I was no longer comfortable. Right? By its very nature, growth lies at the edge of our comfort. So let us be uncomfortable together, let us be in the void, and let us be very clear and very intentional. So at the earlier service, Mary said, I love Marty, but he's not the center. And she's a little snarky about it. I don't know what that... Said I'm not? And I just, all kidding, we're good friends. So all kidding aside, I'm not. I'm just a part of a community. And sometimes it's easy to think that the person in the front is the one. I always say it's kind of like there's so much more to this community, but what we see is just kind of the tip of the iceberg when the real work is done at the iceberg level, right? It's what happens under the surface. So that's all of us participating. That's all of us co-creating this. That's all of us participating at the level we can through our talents and through our gifts and through our money and through our love and through our consciousness. So I'm very excited. I'm really very excited. I'm excited for me. I'm excited for you. I feel really good about what's taking place. And I've been reflecting a lot this week on this wonderful story, and you all know it. In fact, I have a couple different versions of them I'll share with you. So one is a cottager and his wife had a hen that laid a golden egg every day. They supposed that the hen must contain a great lump of gold in its inside, and in order to get the gold, they killed her. Having done so, they found, to their surprise, that the hen differed in no respect than any other hen. The foolish pair, thus hoping to become rich all at once, deprived themselves of the gain of which they were assured day by day. How many of you remember hearing that story? We've all heard it. I always heard it as a golden goose, but, hen works. But because we're enlightened and we're all worldly and stuff, there's an Eastern version. It comes from the Buddhist tradition. And in this story, it is in this the father of a poor family is reborn. Now if you want to know the inside story, this guy is a very enlightened soul, dies early, leaving 3 young children at home and a wife with not a lot of means. So you need to know that before I get into the reincarnation part. So the father of a poor family dies, leaving this family behind, and is reborn as a swan with golden feathers, and invites them to pluck and sell a single feather from his wings to support themselves, returning occasionally to allow them another. The greedy mother, however, of the family eventually plucks all the feathers at once, but they then in turn turn to ordinary feathers. When the swan recovers its feathers, they're no longer gold. So the moral could be that be contented. Appreciate what we have. Now, these are fun stories. We all grew up with them. And though I always heard those as stories as don't be greedy. Appreciate what you have. But I think there's more to that story. And I've been thinking, because, I'm all about finding truth wherever I find it. And I'm thinking about this idea of that we each have a golden goose, or a goose that lays golden eggs. And it is the study and the story of consciousness. One of the terms I use the most often in all of my teaching goes back to the biblical saying where Jesus speaks to us and he says to us, if you'll seek first the kingdom of heaven, which is to say, if you'll seek first the spiritual understanding, then all of these things shall be added unto you. You see, when we seek to know the divine as our source and our supply, as all of our good, then we remain in a state of abundance and flow no matter what the conditions are in our lives. Because conditions change. And so when we are in that state of awareness and understanding and divine flow, then we're not dismayed by what's happening around us. And so if a condition changes, we then look to our source. Now there is, I checked on the break, I checked this, because sometimes I make reference to things that I know not of, but I did do a little reference check, and it turns out the first commandment is, say it, thou shalt have no other gods before me, right? In other words, don't worship false idols. You say, well, I don't do that. You say, really? Because what we do is we mistake the thing for the essence. So the essence is abundance. The thing is money. And when we start to worship money, or we think that we've got to get more money to have an experience, we're looking in the wrong place. You see, the universe has infinite possibilities. Now, I'm not saying money's not a part of it. Money can be a part of it. But so often, as Mary shared, here's this act of generosity that somebody just responded to her being. Now, she wouldn't have known to do that. She probably would have never known her. She wouldn't have gone and asked somebody, give me some money. But in the being abundant, in the recognition of the divine as our source, then our good can come to us from infinite ways, not just the one. So sometimes we think the source of our love is our significant other. And that's all great until you decide that you don't want them to be your significant other, or worse, sometimes they don't want you to be their significant. They decide you're going to be their insignificant other, or some other thing, right? And we're devastated. Oh, right? Where did love go in my life? You were everything to me. And we've got all kinds of love stories. Speaking of which, have you ever thought about writing a country western song? What? My car died, lost my job, my dog died, There's music to be made there. I love it. Exactly. Right? Because we get confused. We worship the wrong thing. So our spiritual work is to always keep in the context of our lives, our spiritual life. To seek first the spiritual dimension. And I know how we are. We're so busy. Got so much to do. And that little chattery mind that lives in some of us that's like, We're going to sit and be in meditation, and it starts telling you all the things you need to get done today, right? And if we listen to that, we think, well, I got to get busy. But what I discover more and more is no, the more I have to do, the more I need to be still. That if I will begin my day in practice, if I will begin my day by listening to the divine and in aligning with the divine and speaking my intention, then all things are added to this. Things begin to flow. When I get into my frantic mind, oddly enough, my life gets frantic. Have you ever noticed that? So the discipline is to learn to put a priority on the spiritual life, to seek first the spiritual dimension, to care and nurture, if you will, the goose that lays the golden eggs, rather than to go in pursuit of the gold, right? So I'm loving this idea as we're moving into our next expression of life, as I'm looking at what's next for me, and that this is indeed an abundant universe, that this is indeed an intelligent universe, and this intelligent universe responds to us according to our own belief, according to our own thought, and according to our own way of being in the world. And so we can look at the exact same circumstances. This happens all the time, where two people will look at the same circumstances and see two entirely different things, right? But the wonderful news, I love Tom's story, was he was at a moment of choice. Somebody ran him off the road. But lo and behold, if he didn't have a Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living affirmation on his dashboard, and he said, I choose love, right? That's how it works. He was fine. We're glad you were fine. But you see, we're always at choice. What is the reality that we choose to see? I was reminded of this wonderful story talking about spiritual healing, because you see, we believe that you can heal conditions. We can believe you can heal conditions of the body through the power of mind. We believe you can heal conditions of the spirit through the mind. We believe you can heal conditions of our finances through the mind. We believe we can change a relationship through the power of this mind. Because each one of us is a co-creative intelligence within the one intelligence. See, we don't create the power. The power is given. But within that power, we have dynamic range and possibility. And so much of our teaching, much of the New Thought teaching, whether it's Christian Science or Unity or religious science or divine science or all these other things, came out of a healing tradition where people went to practitioners to have a spiritual healing that would correspond in the body. Amazing. Marty Bacher went to a practitioner, wasn't called that at the time, and had a change of condition. She was healed and started a work we know as Christian Science. She taught one of her students, Emma Curtis Hopkins, who took these teachings, and then she taught others how to do this, including one of her students was a little guy by the name of Ernest Holmes, which started our denomination, the Fillmores, who started Unity. So there's a rich tradition of this. And if you think about where medicine was a number of years ago, you could either go to somebody to help you work at a psycho-spiritual level or go get bled. I'd try the options, right? Medical science. Now today, both our science has improved greatly, but also so has the recognition that we are whole beings. And so more and more you see in the medical community a recognition of both how the mind affects this. Not yet, we're not there yet, there's work to be done, but it's moving in that direction. So I was looking at this story about a guy who was a hypnotist, I guess what you would call him at the time. And they brought to him a young man who had this skin condition, which is kind of ugly. And the doctors were having no success with working for him. So they brought him to this hypnotist, and he began working through the power of mind to do this. Now, the hypnotist said, I want to be able to verify that the work we're doing is working. So the condition was all over his body, but they started with just the arm. And within a couple of weeks, it cleared up. Just the arm. So well, that works. So they literally body part by body part worked through until this young man was healed of this whole condition. Isn't that remarkable? Isn't that wonderful? So as the story goes on, after the healing had occurred and this young man is able to function well in the world, the hypnotist found out that this condition that he thought that they were working with was not actually this, what he thought it was, which was some kind of wart kind of thing, but rather was an incurable condition. So how does that work if it's incurable? So, good news, the condition never returned to the young man, but the hypnotist was never able to do the same work again. Right? He joined into the belief of its incurability. Interesting, isn't it? I share often the story of multiple personality people that sometimes will have, same body, different personalities that are in that body, who will have allergic reactions. So one story is a woman who liked to get all dressed up and wear pantyhose, but then the Puritan self would come out who was allergic to nylon and would break out. You think, well, how's that? It's the same body. So what I look at in looking at this is it's almost as if we're always making an agreement with something. So when this hypnotist made an agreement, he didn't know it was incurable, and so therefore it wasn't. But once he saw it as incurable, he joined at that level of belief and therefore was no longer able to do the work. So I look at that and I say, where have I put those barriers in my life? Where have I joined in agreement with something being my limitation? Or what's possible for me? And I find we do this in all different areas of our life. And it's a hard thing to step back because our belief system seems so real to us. We're confirming it every day. We say, this is what I believe. All men are jerks. And then you have an entire day of evidence to support your theory, and now you're not only right, you're justified. Yay for you. Right? Our beliefs seem so real because it's the perceptual filter we see life, not only how we project onto life. So to be able to step back is what the spiritual work is about. To move out of the realm of condition, Jesus was saying to us, if you'll seek first this higher spiritual dimension. Because when we go into meditation, we begin to observe that that we're not just thoughts, there's the rise and the fall of thought. There's the rise and the fall of sensation. There's the rise and the fall of everything that's going on. It's not just all the time. And at some point we realize, aha, everything's being created through this mind. And then as we get better and more adept at it, we realize there's a place of stillness. Deepak Chopra refers to it as the gap. That creating from the gap, creating from the void, stepping into that emptiness and therein setting new intention. And that's where we become directive to our life. But we have to be able to step back from the current belief, from the current reality, and say, aha, there's a higher dimension for me. And then it is into that I speak, and it is there that I place my attention. So all of us are practitioners of this teaching. Holmes said to us this. He said, know your own mind. Know your own mind. Train yourself to think what you wish to think. Be what you wish to be. Feel what you wish to feel. And place no limit on this principle. Wow. Know your own mind. I don't know about you, but what I discovered is that I'm my own worst enemy. And I'm my own best friend. It always comes back to that. I can set up, you would not believe how creative I can be with the stories that I make up in my mind. They're rich, but do they support me in being who I want to be? That's the question. And so he's saying, know your own mind. Think what you wish to think. What we learn in this, as we do the practice, is that we literally can teach ourselves how to think differently. Because we're always creatures of habit, but we can change those habits and we can begin to think in an affirmative manner. And no matter what's going on, we start looking for the greater good. When we begin to accept that the universe is for us, that the universe is seeking its highest self-expression through us, then we can stand in that awareness and respond to it and then be intentional and creative in allowing a greater good to flow into our life. Same power, different use. So, as I said, I'm excited. I'm excited about life. I'm excited about what's happening. I'm excited about where I'm going personally, where we're going to as a community of all the greater good that's happening. And I also recognize that it's uncomfortable and challenging sometimes, and sometimes happy and sometimes sad, and kind of looks like life, if you hadn't noticed, right? It's all good. But as I was at a wonderful little meeting with two of our council members this week, and whom I adore, by the way, I adore. And I said, we're trying to work through some things, and I said, I'm thinking we're going to I think we should have a drinking game. And every time I say, I've been doing this for 25 years, we're going to take a shot together. It's a good thing we didn't play the game because none of us would have got around that table. But you notice some things after 25 years. And what I notice after 25 years of doing this is it always is the same. Always different, but always the same. And people get to be people, and we get to co-create something together. And the greater yet to be is emerging, and we get to co-create it. Isn't that awesome? So what do we choose? So this is why I want to be here for these next 4 months, is to be here together in this creative mix of what gets to follow this. I know there's some old patterns of how this center has done this before. And we can do that. But we know how to do chaos and confusion. And so we already have mastered that. What if we did like a new version that was loving and peaceful and joyful and empowering? I don't know. It's just an option, right? If we don't like it that time, next time we create something new. I don't know. So, my friends, I don't know for you, but perhaps there's an area in your life that feels incurable. Like you've tried, you can't get around it, can't get over it, can't get under it, right? And I just want to invite you in this moment to reconsider. What if I didn't believe this to be impossible? What new question would I ask myself? You see, sometimes we talk ourselves into it because we're so focused on the problem. But Dr. Holmes said at some point when we're going to do the spiritual work, we must turn away from the condition and know the spiritual truth. You see, if all we do is we look at our finances, we go, I don't know how to fix it, I don't know how to fix it, I don't know how to fix it, we hold it in place. But when we start to look and realize we live in an abundant universe filled with possibility, filled with opportunity, what haven't I considered yet? And the universe speaks to us. Have you thought about, right? So, I don't know where you are, but I'm going to tell you, because I'm enlightened and I can do so, and I have a reverend in front of my name. It ain't incurable. There is a solution. Okay? Take my word for it. We just haven't found it yet. So, I'm excited. I love you. I'm excited about what's coming for us. And I'm going to invite us to start that journey with prayer. We could do that now if we wanted. Let's do it now. What do you say? Cool. And so as we take this moment to simply turn inward, to honor and acknowledge this divine life, to recognize that there is indeed one intelligence, one being, one divine presence forever and ever expressing itself in, through, and as creation, that we are each some part of it. And so we breathe into this moment recognizing our oneness with the divine. Indeed, there's an intelligence breathing itself through us. And so we recognize that this intelligence, whatever name we give it, is always seeking its highest self-expression. We open our hearts to the presence of unconditional love. We open our minds to divine wisdom. We speak our word of truth from that place of power and clarity. We know that we are created in the image of wholeness, and we allow that wholeness to reveal itself as health, as well-being, as vitality. We speak the word of truth as we recognize that love is indeed the only reality. And so as we choose love, we find it easy to forgive, to release, to let go of those outworn ideas that no longer serve us, to see with new eyes, to see infinite possibility, to allow our relationships to be healed and transformed through the power of this love. We speak this word of truth as we recognize ourselves as abundant beings, for we are one with the source and with the substance of all that is. And so we allow life to flow through us and back to us. We are always involved in an exchange of giving and receiving, and so we allow ourselves to give generously and to receive graciously of this infinite bounty that has been given. I invite us now that if indeed there is a burden on the heart, that we be willing to surrender that, to lay that down, and to accept and know the greater possibility that is seeking its emergence right here and right now, to celebrate, to seek first that spiritual dimension, and know all things are added to us. How grateful I am to bear witness to this spiritual truth. How grateful I am to bless this community. For I know that indeed we are blessed. And so I see this community unfolding joyously, lovingly, abundantly, as we move forward into our greater yet to be. We extend a blessing to our brothers and sisters around the planet. Around the world, we're seeing a world that works for all. We're seeing light shining on all. We're seeing a planet in harmony with itself. We're recognizing the kinship of all life and holding that as sacred and dear. We bless all priests, all rabbis, all ministers, all teachers of every faith, for we are knowing that where two or more are gathered in the divine presence, the I Am is there. We bless all pathways. So with joy and gratitude, I'm simply giving thanks. I'm accepting this truth as already established. I know this word goes forth to heal, to bless, and to prosper, that it is good and very good. So giving thanks, I let it be so, as together we say, and so it is.